Hi and welcome to another story, and today we have part 2 of Candyfloss by Jacqueline Wilson, continuing from chapter 3. My second birthday was on Saturday. I went to my dad's. Mum always took me. She usually stayed a little while and had a cup of coffee in the cafe. Dad often put a whole plate of cakes in front of her, jam donuts, apple turnovers, apricot Danish pastries, all her old favourites. Mum could never be tempted to have so much as a mouthful. She'd just shake her head and pat her flat tummy. Sometimes she couldn't help looking at Dad's tummy and shaking her head. She often gave Dad lectures about my food, saying she didn't want me eating any greasy cafe fry-ups, especially not chip butties, and I had to have lots of fresh fruit and vegetables, and only one small cake at tea time. Dad and I would nod solemnly, and then wink at each other when she was gone. Mum didn't drive me over to Dad's this Saturday. Steve did. "Why can't you take me, Mum?" I said. "I've got too much to do, Floss. I'm busy, busy, busy," said Mum. She was rushing around in her jeans and an old check shirt of Steve's, sorting out things into 3 big piles: take, store and chuck. Tiger was crawling around on his hands and knees, playing with the piles, draping old tights around his shoulders like a feather boa, and waving a saucepan as a hat. "Let's put Tiger on the chuck pile," I said. "Ho ha ha, very droll," said Mum. "Go on then, off you go to your dad's." "I still don't see why you can't take me. Same as usual," I muttered, trailing after Steve. But it wasn't the same as usual. I knew perfectly well why Mum didn't want to take me. She didn't want to face my dad when he found out about Australia. It was so mean of her. I sat in the back of Steve's posh company car and glared at the back of his pink neck. He had a very short haircut. Mum said it was cute and loved running her fingers through it. I thought it looked plain silly. Who wants designer stubble on their head? Steve was wearing one of his special weekend sports shirts with very short sleeves showing off his big muscles. He worked out at the gym most mornings before work. Mum had joined the gym now too. She even took Tiger to a baby gym class, which was totally mad. Tiger crawled around at way too rapid a pace as it was. He was learning to climb up onto beds and wriggle right into corners. He needed to be restrained, not encouraged. Steve started making general chit-chat in the car. He never knows quite what to say to me. Ditto me him. He asked if I was looking forward to going to Australia. I said, He said, "Wouldn't it be fabulous living in an exciting city like Sydney?" I said, We gave up after that. Steve switched the radio on, and we both listened to music. Steve hummed along. I kept quiet. I only do sing-songs with my dad. They played a Kylie song on the radio. "She's Australian," said Steve. I said. "Maybe we'll all start talking Australian. Isn't that right, Cobber?" said Steve in the most truly terrible Australian accent. I didn't respond with so much as an I needed to concentrate on what I was going to say to my dad. When should I tell him? I tried rehearsing the right words inside my head, but it was like when your computer screen freezes. I couldn't think up anything at all. Steve turned into our road and drew up outside the cafe. I looked up at the sign, Harley's Cafe. It's named after my dad. It isn't called Harley, like the big motorbikes. It's Charlie. He's Charlie, but the big C fell off years ago. Mum always calls Dad a right Charlie, like it's some kind of insult. The cafe used to get lots of customers. My dad's chip butties were especially famous. Everyone came to eat them. Lots and lots of guys came from the big building site. The cafe was always crowded out at lunchtime because all the high school students spent their dinner money at our place. But then everyone got into this healthy eating, and the students had to stay at school and eat salads. The guys finished building the big offices and moved on. The office workers and had sandwiches and wraps sent in. They didn't want fry-ups and chip butties. We still had a few lunchtime regulars, but then a big pizza takeaway opened up just down the street, and they started going there instead. Dad had lots of spare time to spruce up the cafe now, but he never seemed to get round to it. The paint was peeling and the window was dirty. Some boy had written a rude word on it with his finger. The menu had slipped sideways and one of the limp curtains was drooping off its rail, and someone had thrown their takeaway pizza cartons right by the doorstep. "Poor old Charlie," said Steve. "This cafe's starting to look a right dump. Is he still getting any customers?" "He's getting heaps and heaps," I said. "My dad's the greatest cook in the world. He's going to get his own big restaurant one day. I bet he'll get to be one of those famous chefs on television, with his own programme and his own cookery books." Said Steve. "You wait. He's going to be heaps more successful than you are, Steve," I said, and I grabbed my bag and shot out of the car. I hoped he wouldn't tell Mum I'd been cheeky. I dashed into the cafe, the bell ringing wildly. It was almost empty, the place settings undisturbed on the blue and white check tablecloths. There were just the 3 regulars. Billy the Chip was eating a chip butty, hunched up over the table, listening intently to the sports channel on his crackly little transistor radio. Billy the Chip came and had a chip butty every single day, though he made his own chip butties every evening in his chip van outside the railway station. Dad used to go to his chip van when he was a little boy. Dad's dad went to his chip van when he was a boy. Billy the Chip had his chip van forever. He was very old and very thin and very grey, and he walked very slowly because he had to take it easy. He'd sleep late, eat his butty at my dad's, spend his afternoon at the betting shop, tow his van to the station and then fry his chips all until the pubs were closed and the last train had gone. Old Ron sat at the next table, eating his bacon and eggs, still in his raincoat and cap, even though it was boiling hot in the cafe. Old Ron was old, but nowhere near as old as Billy the Chip. He nodded and winked at me, but as he had a nervous tic and nodded and winked continuously, I wasn't sure whether he was greeting me or not. Miss Davis sat right at the other end, as far away from the two old men as she could manage. She saw them nearly every day in the cafe, but she never spoke to them, or even glanced in their direction. She sat with her back to them, sipping her cup of tea. She had her pull-along bag by her side. She kept one hand on it, as if she was scared it would wheel itself off independently. It was lumpy with stale bread and birdseed. She fed all the pigeons in the town every morning, stopping off at my dad's cafe for refreshment, halfway round. "Hey, Dad," I called. He peered out the little hatch in the kitchen and then came running. "How's my little birthday sweetheart?" he said, giving me a great big chip-smelling hug. He whirled me round and round so that my legs flew out behind me. "Mind my trolley," Miss Davis snapped, though we weren't anywhere near it. "There's a horse called Birthday Girl in the big race at 3:30, said Billy the Chip. "I'll have a little bet, and if I get lucky, I'll buy you a special birthday present, Flossie." "Birthday, is it? Can't even remember when mine is," said old Ron. I wasn't sure whether he was joking or not. Old Ron didn't seem too sure either. Still, he gave me a very fluffy toffee out of his Macintosh pocket as a birthday treat. Dad thanked him very much, but mouthed, "Don't eat it," at me. I said I'd save it for later. "Oh, well, I suppose I'd better find you something too," said Miss Davis, scrabbling inside her trolley. I wondered if she was going to give me a packet of birdseed, but she found her purse and gave me 20 pence. I thanked her very politely, because I knew weird old ladies like Miss Davis think 20 pence is a lot of money. Dad smiled at me gratefully, and then led me into the kitchen. He'd manoeuvred one of the cafe tables into the corner and decorated it with tinsel and balloons, and hung the Christmas fairy lights up above. There was a silver placemat, and little silver bows on the knife and fork, and a banner with Happy Birthday Princess in Dad's wobbly printing. "Oh, Dad," I said, and I started crying. Hey, no tears, sweetheart," said Dad. "Now sit yourself down on your special throne and open your presents." He thrust 3 big red parcels at me, and one little limp brown paper parcel tied with string. "That one's from Grandma," said Dad. He rubbed his lip. "Don't get too excited." I squeezed the soft brown paper. "I think she's knitted me something again," I said. Grandma's presents were generally hand-knitted. They were made specially for me, but she couldn't quite keep it up with how old I was. She knitted me weeny toddler-sized pink cardies with rabbits and ducks and teddies on the dinky pockets. "It feels even littler this time," I said, sighing. "Maybe it's a vest and knicker set," said Dad. "Don't worry, I promise I won't make you wear them." Grandma's present wasn't a vest and knickers. It was almost as bad. She knitted me 2 droopy woolly animals, one grey, one sludge, with little blobby sewn eyes. It was hard working out which species they were. The grey one had big ears and a very long droopy nose. The sludge one had small ears and a tail. "I think this one's an elephant," I said, fingering the grey one. Then I looked at the sludge creature. "Do you think this one's a dog or a cat?" "Looks like it could be either," said Dad. "Perhaps it's a dog or a dat or a cog." "Dad, what am I going to say to Grandma when I write a thank you letter?" "Just say thank you for the lovely woolly cuddly toys," said Dad. You don't have to specify. I once thanked her for a stripy scarf, though privately I thought it was much too small. It turned out it was a special knitted tie. Oh well, she means well, bless her. Now open your other presents, Princess. The 3 red parcels all said Happy Christmas in curly gold writing. "Sorry, Pet, I didn't have any proper birthday wrapping paper," said Dad. "Come on then, open them up. I'm dying to see what you think of them." The first parcel contained a homemade silver paper crown, studded with Roundtree's fruit gum jewels. Silver glitter sprinkled my curls when I put it on, but Dad said it just made my hair look extra especially sparkly. "You look like a real birthday princess with your crown on," said Dad. He bowed to me. Then he curtsied too, which made me giggle. The second parcel contained a pair of silver high-heeled shoes. "Real high heels, Dad. Wow," I said. They were second-hand ladies' shoes, but much too big for me. But I didn't care. I kicked off my new trainers and stuck my feet into my special silver shoes. "Oh dear, they don't really fit. Don't twist your ankle, for God's sake," said Dad. "You'd better just wear them indoors until you grow into them. Open the big parcel then." It was a long pink satin dress with puffed sleeves and rosebuds around the bodice. It had once been somebody's bridesmaid's dress. They were quite big. They were quite a big somebody. The dress hung off me and tailed down onto the floor, even when I was wearing my new high heels. Oh dear, it's much too big, said Dad. No, it isn't. It's lovely. I've always wanted a really long, special dress, I said quickly. And the shoes are too big too, said Dad. But you don't get high heels my size. I can always stuff them with socks or something. I feel like a real princess in them, Dad, I said. You're my princess, said Dad, grinning at me. Right, I'd better prepare a royal feast for my little mini queen. I hadn't been able to eat any breakfast in Mum's. I wasn't sure I had the appetite for one of my dad's famous fry-ups either. My tummy was still so tense because I had to tell him about Australia. I decided I should do it there and then, the minute he made me my breakfast, so it was all over and done with, and then Dad would understand why I didn't feel like eating. But Dad was so sweet, serving me a plate with a funny food face, chips for hair, 2 mushrooms for eyes, a sausage for a nose, a curly piece of bacon for a smiley mouth, and a spoonful of baked beans, either side as rosy cheeks. I couldn't spoil his fun. I shut up and ate my face as best I could, vowing to myself I'd tell him at lunchtime. But at lunchtime a whole crowd of football fans came barging into the cafe for chip butties before the match. Dad was kept so busy that I couldn't stop him in his tracks with my news. He fried the chips and buttered the rolls, and I served them and took the money. Lots of the guys were in a good mood and left a big tip for the weenie waitress. I tried to give Dad the money, but he wouldn't hear of it. It's yours, Floss. You've earned it fair and square. We make a great little team, you and me. When I leave school, we'll have our own fancy restaurant, you and me. Eh, Dad? Shay, Charlie and Floss, yeah? It was one of our favourite games, but today Dad just shook his head sadly. I don't think you should tie yourself down to your old dad, little Floss, he said. I think I just cramped your style. I'm hardly a success story. Yes, you are, Dad. Look, I'm sure the cafe will pick up soon. Look how busy we've been in this lunchtime. 10 chip butties aren't going to change my luck, sweetheart, said Dad. He took a deep breath. Floss, maybe I should tell you something. I took a deep breath too. Dad, maybe I should tell you something. We looked at each other. Is it bad news, said Dad. Yes, I said. Mine's bad news too, but we can't have had news on bad news on a birthday. We'll tell our sorry tales tomorrow, okay, sweetheart? We've got more important things to do today, like making your birthday cake. We only had a couple of customers for cups of tea all afternoon, so we could concentrate on the cake. Dad let me take a turn mixing it, with a tea towel tucked around me so my princess dress wouldn't get splattered. He let me scrape out the bowl afterwards. I even licked it. Dad just laughed. The cake made the whole cafe smell beautiful when it was baking in the oven. Dad and I played catch with my birthday balloons, and then he played loud rock music, and we did a birthday dance. I kept falling out of my silver high heels, so I took them off my feet and put them in my hands and made them do a tap dance on each tabletop. Then the cake came out of the oven, all golden brown and beautiful. We mixed up the buttercream in a bowl while the cake was cooking, and then spread it in the middle like a sandwich, with a layer of raspberry jam. Now, we'll do the icing on top, said Dad. What decoration do you fancy? Rainbow sprinkles? Little silver balls? Smarties? Glacier cherries? Crystallized roses? I thought hard, pondering each choice. All of them, said Dad, grinning. Yes, please, I said. OK, Bob's your uncle and Fanny's your aunt, said Dad. Right, the cake decorator extraordinaire will get cracking, assisted by the birthday princess herself. We studded the cake with silver balls and sweets, sprinkling and dabbing and daubing until the entire cake was covered with scarcely any room for candles. Should we light your candles now and have a slice? Said Dad eagerly. You bet, I said. Dad lit each candle, singing happy birthday very loudly and off-key. Then I closed my eyes and wished as hard as I could. Please, 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 let me stay seeing Dad somehow. I blew so hard I felt my chest would collapse. I opened my eyes, and every snuffed candle burst into flames again. I blinked at them, bewildered. I blew again. They flickered, they faded, and then flamed. Blow a bit harder, Floss, said Dad. I am, I said, struggling nearly in tears. I so wanted my wish to come true. Hey, don't get upset, pet. It's only silly old Dad having a bit of fun. They're just joke candles, look. Dad blew them out too, and they instantly relit themselves. It's so you can have lots of birthday wishes, he said. I'll make a wish too. He shut his eyes and muttered under his breath. What are you wishing for, Dad? I can't tell you, it won't come true, said Dad, giving my nose a tiny flick. Come on, here's the cake knife. Let's have a huge chunk each, eh? We chomped our cake. Whenever one of Dad's customers drifted in, we gave them a slice too. There was still a semicircle of cake left when Dad locked up the shop. We usually cuddled up on the sofa and watched an old video on the telly. Dad hadn't got round to buying a DVD player yet. In fact, the television itself was on the blink. You often had to hit it before it would work. It didn't really matter if it went into a terminal sulk. Dad read to me, and I read to him, or we played funny paper games like Noughts and Crosses and Hangman and Battleships. We'll sofa slouch tomorrow, said Dad. We've got a hot date tonight, birthday girl. Get your jacket. Where are we going, Dad? He winked at me. There's a travelling fun fair up on the common this week. Oh, wow! Mum never let me go to fairs. She said they were horrible, noisy, rough places. She said she couldn't stand all the fried onion food smells. They were a horrible reminder of the cafe. Mum and Steve took me to Chessington World of Adventures and Fort Park and Alton Towers. They all cost lots of money, so Mum said you didn't get riffraff. But I wasn't with Mum, I was with Dad. We both loved fairs. Better change out your fancy silver shoes, sweetheart. Fairs can be muddy places, said Dad. I knew it would be sensible to change out of my princess dress too, but Dad said quickly, No, you can still stay a birthday princess in your frock, sweetie. I knew perfectly well I looked an idiot in my second-hand bridesmaid gown, my denim jacket and my new trainers. Still, I knew Dad wanted me to act like I couldn't bear to take my dress off because it was so special. So I wore the entire bizarre outfit, silver paper crown and all. I prayed I wouldn't meet anyone from school at the fair, especially Margot and Judy. Chapter 4. The fair was crowded. There were quite a lot of big boys milling about, the sort Mum would call riff-raff. Dad put his arm around me. You stick close to your old dad, sweetheart, he said. Now, what should we go on first? The roundabout, I said. Good choice, said Dad. Come along then, princess. Select your steed. Dad let me take my time, circling the roundabout, so that I could see every single horse and work out which one I liked the best. I spotted a snow-white horse with a pink mane and tail and a big pink smiley mouth. Her name was written in magenta around her neck. She was called Pearl. I ran for her the minute the roundabout slowed down, but it was difficult in my long bridesmaid dress. Another girl elbowed me out of the way and clambered on first. Never mind, said Dad, we'll wait. So we waited, and at long last the roundabout slowed down again, and this time Dad ran too, and he got to Pearl and saved her for me. You ride with me, Dad, I said. I hitched up my skirts and sat in front of the golden barley sugar rail coming out of Pearl's back, and Dad sat behind me, his arms around my waist. We paid our money and the lovely old music started up and we rode around and round until the whole fairground was just a mosaic of coloured lights. I wished Pearl would kick her silver hooves and rear up off her stand and gallop away with us forever. Would you like another ride on Pearl, Princess? Dad asked. Oh, please. So we went round and round and round again, and when we at last got off, Dad let me pat Pearl's nose and stroke her long mane. She's so pretty, I said. I just love her pink mane. It matches my dress, Dad, look. We'd better make sure our refreshments match your dress too, said Dad. Candy for my floss? He led me to a Candyfloss stall. It was decorated with roses, and a great pink teddy bear in a frilly dress dangled from the awning. Mum never ever lets me have Candyfloss, because it's so bad for my teeth, I said. You can give your teeth an extra thorough brush tonight, said Dad, and he nodded at the big blonde lady in the Candyfloss van. We'll have one each, please. My teeth are pretty duff already. I wouldn't say that, said the Candyfloss lady. You've got a lovely smile, sir. Dad gave her a big grin then. I grinned too. I love it when people like my dad. You take after your dad, darling, said the Candyfloss lady. You're looking very gorgeous in that pretty pink frock. Have you been a bridesmaid? No, it's her birthday. She's my birthday princess, said Dad. Dad, I said, feeling daft. Isn't that lovely? Well, we'd better make you an extra big birthday special. I watched fascinated as she poured sugar into the middle of the metal cauldron and then set it spinning. Wisps of Candyfloss formed as if by magic. She took a stick and swirled it round and round until it bore an enormous pink fluffy cloud of Candyfloss. Here you are, sweetheart, she said, handing it over. Oh, yum, I said. I held it in awe, approaching it gingerly, not quite sure how to bite into it. Then someone behind jostled me, and my nose went deep into the pink fluffy cloud and stuck there. Watch out, mate. Mind my little girl, said Dad, turning around. It wasn't just one mate. There were 6 or 7 big lads, all of them holding cans of beer. They were strutting around saying stupid things, very, very rude things. They didn't take any notice of Dad at all. Give us one of them big scoops of peanuts, the biggest guy said to the Candyfloss lady. Yeah, one for me too, I've got the munchies. I'll have popcorn. The big carton, said another. You wait your turn, boys. I'm serving this gentleman, said the Candyfloss lady. Here, we don't wait turns. We tell you, you serve us. Got it? Said the biggest. This is my stall, and I don't have to serve anyone, so you can all push off sharpish. Get it? Said the Candyfloss lady. They paused, taking it in. You don't talk to me like that, said the big guy. Then he called her a terrible, rude word. Don't you dare bad-mouth at the lady, said Dad. You need your mouth washed out with soap, lad. You need your mouth shutting, you fat Burke, said the boy, and he punched Dad straight in the face. Dad hit him back, but then all his mates got stuck in. I screamed and someone shoved me, and I ended up flat on my face in the mud. I lay there stunned. There was a lot of shouting, a lot of struggling. I lifted my head. Help! They're hurting my dad, I yelled. It's okay, sweetheart. Your dad's okay now. Here, let me help you up, you poor little darling." It was the Candyfloss lady herself, sitting me up gently and wiping my sticky face. My silver crown fell off, all torn and crumpled. I peered around desperately for my dad. I saw a lot of figures in the distance, big burly guys dragging the horrible drunk lads away from the fair. "They're not taking my dad away too, are they?" I said. "No, no, of course not. He's over there, by my stall, see?" Dad was leaning against the stall, with a big fairground guy offering him a cloth for a bleeding lip. "Don't give him that dirty old rag, Saul. Here, mind the stall for 10 minutes while I get these two properly cleaned up in my caravan," said the Candyfloss lady. She helped me stand up, tutting sympathetically when she saw the state of my dress. "Dear, oh dear. Still, it's not ripped. I wish I could say the same for your poor old dad's jeans. I'm sure all that mud will wash off easily enough. Did those idiots hurt you, lovey?" "I don't think so," I said. I still couldn't understand what had happened. One minute they'd all been hitting my dad, and then the next, they were all limping away, escorted by the fairground guys. "Dad, Dad," I said, stumbling over to him. "Dad, did you beat them all up, those horrible lads?" Dad laughed and then winced because it stretched his sore lip. "Me?" he said. "I was blooming useless, Floss." "No, you weren't. You were wonderful sticking up for me like that," said the Candyfloss lady. "He stuck up for me too," I said. "Yes, he's very gallant and brave, your dad," said the Candyfloss lady. "Now, you two come with me, and we'll get you cleaned up properly." "So how come they all stop fighting?" I asked, as we followed her in and out of the stalls and the trailers to the circle of caravans. "Our guys keep an eye out for hassle," said the Candyfloss lady. "One hint of trouble, and they all come running, and they're tough lads too." "I'll say," said Dad, "especially the one with the fair hair and the skull rings. The one who gave me the rag for my nose. He felled 3 of the boys with one blow." "Ah, Saul, he's my lad," said the Candyfloss lady. "He's a right softy, especially with the girls, but you don't want to get on the wrong side of him." "I'm certainly glad he was on my side," said Dad. "Right, this is my van," said the Candyfloss lady. It was a beautiful bright pink with red roses carefully painted over the door. "I love the roses," said Dad. "That's my name, Rose. It was my mum's name and my gran's. They claimed we were related to the fortune-teller Gypsy Rose. They used to read palms and peer into the crystal ball and all that lark." "Can you tell fortunes?" I asked excitedly. "Oh, I can read the tea leaves with the best of them," she said, smiling at me. "Come on, up the steps." We climbed the neat golden ladder and went through the pink door. "Ooh," I said. It was the most wonderful, magical, strange room ever. The inside walls were bright pink too, with lots of paintings and flowers and country cottages and little children in nighties. Great glittery glass mirrors doubled and tripled all the images, so you weren't quite sure what was real and what was reflection. There was a big red velvet sofa with needlework cushions and a polished table with a lace cloth and a cabinet in one corner containing lots of china crinoline ladies. A gold clock ticked and tocked on a sideboard with a big china dog on either side. "It's so beautiful," I said. "I'm glad you like it, Ducky," said Rose, going into her tiny kitchen and running water into a red bowl. "How come you've got running water?" said Dad. "Oh, we get it piped whenever we pitch up." "So, do you travel all over the country?" "Well, just the southeast. We fetch up at a new site each week during the summer." She got a cloth and started washing my face and hands. She did it very gently, going carefully around my eyes and nose and mouth, not scrubbing splish-splosh the way some grown-ups do. Then she started dabbing at the stains on my dress. I had another peer round the beautiful red room while she was mopping me. "How come all your lovely ornaments and pictures don't get broken when you move on the next site?" I asked. "I'm magic. I just go zap." She waved her long silver fingernails and fixed them to the walls with my occult powers. I blinked at her. So did Dad. Rose burst out laughing. No, of course I don't. I bundle them all up carefully in bubble wrap each time," she said. "And where do you sleep? I can't see a bed anywhere," I said. "Floss, stop being so nosy," said Dad. "It's rude to ask so many questions." "I don't mind a bit," said Rose. "See that sofa? You lift the seat part, and there's my bed, all lovely and cosy, neatly stowed out of sight." "What about Saul? Where's his bed?" "He's got his own trailer now. He's way too big to share with his old mum." "What about Saul's dad?" said my dad. Rose chuckled. "Now who's being nosy," she said. "Oh, he cleared off a long time ago. Last spotted with a tassel-twirling circus girl half his age." "Oh, right, I'm sorry," said Dad, going a bit pink. "Don't be sorry, dear. I like my independence." There, she held out my pink skirts. They were wet, but nearly all the mud had come out. "You've done an expert job there," said Dad. "I've had enough practice. My Saul used to come back covered in mud every single time he went out to play," said Rose. She rinsed out the bowl and got a clean cloth. "Now, sir, let's sort you out." "I'm not a sir, I'm Charlie," said Dad, "and this is my little girl Floss." "How do you do, Charlie? OK, let's get you cleaned up properly. That little tow rag gave you a nasty split lip as well as a bloody nose. No kissing for you for a day or two." "Chance would be a fine thing," said Dad. She mopped Dad very gently. Dad can be a bit of a baby when he cuts himself, but he didn't wince once, not even when she dabbed his cuts with antiseptic. Now, what about your legs? Are they cut too? She said, peering at the great rips in the knees of Dad's jeans. Just skinned. They're fine, said Dad. Are you such a stoical chap, said Rose. Still, it must have been a nasty shock. I think we could both do with a nip of brandy, don't you? She poured 2 drinks in a pretty crimson glass, and she gave me a lovely lemonade in a green glass goblet. White wine, madam, she said, serving it with a flourish. Delicious, I said, but I couldn't possibly have a cup of tea too. You don't like tea, Floss, said Dad. No, but I want Rose to read the tea leaves. Well, to tell you the truth, lovey, I've only got 2 tea bags in my caddy, but I'll read your palm. How about that? Oh, yes, please. I thrust it at her eagerly. She sat down beside me and took my palm in hers, looking at it intently. Ah, she said. What? Oh, please, what is it? Rose is going to tell you that you bite your nails and you've just had a birthday and you're the apple of your dad's eye, said Dad, laughing. Oh, Dad, I said. You shush, Dad, said Rose. She delicately traced the lines on my hand. Now, this line is broken, which tells me you've had a little heartache, and you felt torn in two. Is that right? Oh, yes. Don't worry, though, darling. I can see very happy times ahead. Yes, there are going to be a few changes in store. I don't think I like changes, I said. I've had too many. No, these are good changes. You wait and see. What are they? I said warily. Ah, that's for you to find out in the future. Can't you give me a hint or two? They're changes to do with your home, your family, your friends. Oh no, is Rhiannon going to break friends with me and go off with Margot? You wait and see. She gently chucked me under the chin. Don't look so worried. You wait, there are all sorts of signs and importance. This is your lucky break, Floss. Is it mine too? I could certainly do with my luck changing, said Dad. Do you want me to read your palm too? Maybe not. I'm not sure I'd like what I heard, said Dad, drowning his drink. Well, you've been so kind to us, Rose. We better not keep you away from your Candyfloss stool any longer. Come on, Floss, it's ages past your bedtime. Well, if you change your mind, come back and find me, said Rose, smiling at him. Now, the least we can do is give you both a free ride on something. What do you fancy, the big wheel, the waltzer, the rotunda? Dad looked at me. I looked at him. Another go on Pearl, said Dad. Oh, please. So we had one more magical ride on the roundabout. Pearl galloped round and round on the silver hooves, pink mane and tail flying. We flew with her, and as the hurdy-gurdy music played, I sang in my head, Our luck is changing, our luck is changing, our luck is changing. And that is where we will leave part 2 of Candyfloss by Jacqueline Wilson. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.